Hi and welcome to Lost Gear, a series where I look at music gear that is, for one reason or another, not available anymore and has no spiritual successors available that could easily replace it. We live in an era where older gear is regularly discontinued, and I want to highlight what some of the gear did well, keep their idea in the public consciousness in a way, and maybe see more alternatives in the future. Today we're talking about the Flux by ioLabs. The Flux was kickstarted in 2020 and later sold in small batches directly from the manufacturer. ioLabs then started a Kickstarter for a new module in 2022, but went dark in May 24. The Kickstarter never fulfilled and nobody could get a hold of ioLabs or their module since then. Which is quite a shame, as the Flux had a really unique approach to sequencing, which I will show you in this video. So the Flux is a 4-channel sequencer where each channel has one main gate output and 2 auxiliary gate outputs. Each channel also has a CV out that can be quantized. The Flux is a step-based sequencer with up to 16 steps, and when we press play, we can move through all these steps consecutively. But each step on the Flux is its own programmable microcosmos. For one, each step can have any type of length, and additionally we can select how many triggers we want to evenly space within that given length. So if our step has a length of 16 quarter notes and we have a step density of 8, they will distribute evenly every 2 quarters within that step. Of course, in this way it's also possible to have odd meters, such as 7/16 or 12/8. What sets the Flux apart from other sequencers, and the reason why I made this video, is the implementation of what ioLabs calls temporal modulation synthesis. So until now, we have evenly distributed all the steps across our step length. But changing the val parameter on the Flux, we can actually start an uneven distribution of the triggers. So as you can hear, the triggers start slower and then speed up. Or we can switch it around and have the triggers start fast and then slow down. The Flux has a wide range of temporal curves to choose from, and all of these will affect when and where time will be compressed or expanded. And all of this time compression and expansion can be set per step, per channel. The diff value will increase or decrease the differences between the different temporal sections. The phase will move the whole trigger section either forwards or backwards in time. So moving the phase by 180 degrees means that the triggers will only start after half the sequence has already elapsed. And finally, the compression will compress the selected triggers. For example, a compression of 50% means the triggers are triggered twice as fast. The mask feature helps us to omit certain triggers. For example, a mask of 1 and 2 means every second trigger is omitted. A mask of 1 and 3 means every third trigger is omitted, and so on. The aux section determines how the aux gate outputs are being triggered. For example, they could have the same sequence as the main output, but time shifted by 1, 2, or 3 steps. Or they could trigger whenever the main output is triggered 1, 2, 3 times, and so on. So I left these 2 features last, but I think these are actually 2 standout features on the Flux. One is its humanization feature, which means that triggers are triggered slightly before or after they're supposed to trigger. But unlike a shuffle effect where it's very deterministic how the triggers are being moved, the humanization feature is truly random. I even like this humanization feature on patterns without any temporal modifications, for example hi-hats, to give me a bit more of a human feel to the pattern. So if we now go to page 2 of the sequencer, we have control over our CV output. And I have to say, the Flux is doing something that I find really interesting, which I haven't really seen in many other sequencers, and that's the way we can quantize our notes. So we can not only quantize our notes to say minor, major scales, and so on, but we can actually decide how many notes we want to have in an octave. And so now if we wanted to have, say, 19 notes in an octave to play some microtonal sounds, we can select which of these notes within this timescale are actually for us interesting to use. And I really have to say, I don't see this kind of setup in any other sequencer. So I'm really happy that this one exists, and I experiment with it quite a few. And lastly, and I don't want to drag this out, we have a whole mod matrix where we can use internal LFOs, sample and holds, and other signals to address basically any of the parameters that you have seen so far. Additionally, the Flux has 4 macro knobs and 4 CV inputs that can be assigned to control any of the parameters that we have seen and multiple of those at the same time. Alright, so now that we have seen all the features of the Flux, let's actually hear it in action. In this example, you can hear some triplets and other odd meters in the hi-hats and some temporal modifications in the main melody. Here the bass line is the main recipient of some temporal bending, and we can hear the closed hi-hat triggered on channel 3 being accented by the open hi-hat triggers from the aux output. By now you can probably spot all the temporal bending by yourself. And I haven't mentioned this yet, but the Flux can spit out so many triggers that we can turn it into an impromptu oscillator. Here are a couple of examples. So yeah, what a cool little sequencer with a neat approach to temporal structuring. As you may have guessed, the UI is a bit of a mess and hard to navigate. The module is really 2 or 3 firmware updates away from true greatness. I haven't seen any other modules that really feature this breadth of options of the Flux. But alternatives that you can seek out still today are the 4MS Catalyst Sequencer or the ADAC Clock Bender, or you could clock your modules with clocks that speed up or slow down. So yeah, I really think there's some cool ideas in the sequencer that hopefully resurface in one way or another in a more playable form in the future. I hope this was interesting to you. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.